Tonight, millions of people prepare for the worst ahead of tropical cyclone Alfred's arrival. Good evening, I'm Jennett with you from Ngunnawal country and acknowledging others with connection to the lands of the ACT. This is ABC News. Also tonight, Canberra's Brindabella Christian College goes into voluntary administration. Cross-border raids on an alleged gun manufacturing ring. And just getting started, US President Donald Trump addresses Congress to cheers and jeers. We'll bring you the latest on that breaking story about Brindabella Christian College soon. But first, to Cyclone Alfred preparations. The weather system is the biggest threat to southeast Queensland in 50 years. 4 million people are in its path as it barrels towards Brisbane. The cyclone's currently 325 kilometres east of the city and is set to make landfall early on Friday morning, bringing with it destructive winds and life-threatening flooding. Tens of thousands of homes are at risk.
As Cyclone Alfred inches closer, his force is becoming more ferocious.
Oh my God.
But it's what comes after the initial impact that's leaving businesses in low-lying areas feeling uneasy.
Today it's really about preparation. We don't necessarily want to see a repeat of what happened in 2022. It went under, like water did flow through the cafe.
Residents in flood-prone suburbs also doing what they can while they still can.
The last flood was about 1.3 metres, but we're hoping that the flood levels don't reach what it did in 2022.
The Category 2 system is set to make landfall early Friday morning, bringing with it destructive winds. A real worry, especially for properties on the Gold Coast, which were destroyed by a rare tornado in 2023.
I don't think there was a house in this street that wasn't damaged by that. The roof got taken off this. This has all been repaired.
The bigger risk, torrential rain that is set to linger for days.
This sort of rainfall is expected to produce life-threatening flash and riverine flooding.
Authorities are extremely concerned that flooding could be exacerbated by storm surges, where water is pushed inland by abnormally high tides. Alfred could bring a high tide more than a metre above its usual level, which could be disastrous for many in low-lying areas. Many island residents off Moreton Bay have heeded warnings to consider evacuating.
The fact that no one can get over to the island once the cyclone hits, so you're there by yourself. It's a scary time.
The most important is human life, and that's what I chose this morning.
But some have chosen to stay.
We were a bit anxious. This will be the first time I've been through a cyclone in my lifetime, and I'm 53 years old. So the unknown's there, of course, but been through floods and things before.
For those in Brisbane with nowhere safe to shelter,
we are initiating a cyclone refuge centre at the RNA showgrounds.
The governments across the board are taking this seriously, and Queenslanders, as well as those on the north coast of New South Wales, need to do so as well.
Public transport in the city will cease tonight and will be shut down till at least Friday. Schools will also close from tomorrow.
I'm pretty happy not to be coming out in this weather to be doing school pick-up or drop-off.
Keeping safe and staying dry, the main priority. Will Murray, ABC News, Brisbane.
Residents in northeast New South Wales are being told to prepare for the worst ahead of tropical cyclone Alfred's landfall. 12 evacuation centres opened this afternoon across the state's Tweed and Northern Rivers communities. Ballina Airport has closed and several flights into Coffs Harbour have also been cancelled. More than 230 schools will close for the remainder of the week. Preparations are underway across flood zone areas with 2,000 emergency service personnel assisting the Defence Force on standby.
We're asking for people to think about relocating on Thursday if they believe they're in a vulnerable situation, because by the time of Thursday evening into Friday morning, it may well be too late.
Reporter Laura Lavelle is in Brisbane for us tonight, and Sean Tarek Goodwin is in northern New South Wales. First to you, Laura, how's the weather looking where you are?
Well, Greg, tropical cyclone Alfred is definitely making its presence known here in Brisbane. Over the past few hours, wind speeds have definitely picked up, but we know it's nothing compared with what is waiting just over the horizon. The Bureau of Meteorology has released its latest track map. It shows that the system is currently about 320 kilometres east off the coast here and tracking slowly and surely towards us. Now, at the moment, it's a Category 2 system and expected to remain that way until it makes landfall. When that will be, the Bureau says it'll likely be sometime early Friday morning. Now, from this morning, we could see gale force winds. From tomorrow, destructive wind gusts up to 155 kilometres an hour, especially for those island communities and for areas south of the cyclone's eye. Now, those island communities are really the focus of the attention at the moment. They'll be some of the first places to feel the impact of this cyclone and likely already feeling the impact as we speak now as well.
And Sean, in Yamba, the area you are in had devastating flooding only 3 years ago. Are residents there nervous about a possible repeat?
Well, they are, Greg, and particularly those who are living in low-lying areas of northern New South Wales, are finishing off their last-minute preparations, and we're already starting to see some intense conditions. The Bureau of Meteorology saying that it's observing some isolated gale force winds between Cape Byron and Coolangatta. There's a particular sense of uncertainty here in Yamba. This community of about 6,500 people is expecting to become completely cut off. The SES says that it will be standing by to service those communities who do become isolated, but it is recommended for those who are considering relocating temporarily to do so earlier rather than later.
All right, Laura Lavelle in Brisbane and Sean Tarek Goodwin in Yamba. Thanks to both. At Category 2, Tropical Cyclone Alfred is destined to bring some of the most significant wind and rain to highly populated areas in the nation's recent history. Here's ABC meteorologist Tom Saunders.
Alfred will bring a multitude of severe weather across several days. This includes storm-force winds, torrential rain and a dangerous storm surge. Alfred is currently 300 kilometres offshore and is forecast to approach the coast tomorrow before making landfall on Friday morning, somewhere between the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast. A Category 2 storm is defined by peak gusts from 125 to 164 kilometres per hour. At this strength, wind is destructive and will cause some damage to homes and crops while toppling trees, which can lead to power outages. Alfred's rainfall will peak from Thursday to Saturday. Heavy falls will extend well down the coast in the onshore flow to the south of the eye. However, rainfall intensity will rapidly decline to the north of the system where the winds are blowing in a drier offshore direction. The system may generate 6-hour totals up to 250 millimetres. That's enough for life-threatening flash flooding, while 24-hour totals could reach 400 millimetres, sufficient for major river flooding. And finally, the wide field of gales is churning up huge waves. They're averaging 6 metres near the border, with maximum wave heights over 12 metres. When combined with water levels up to half a metre above the normal highest tide of the year, the powerful waves will lead to coastal inundation and significant beach erosion.
Tom Saunders reporting there. Now to other news, and Canberra private school Brindabella Christian College has gone into voluntary administration amid ongoing concerns about the school's governance and finances. Last month, the Australian Tax Office launched court action to recover a multi-million-dollar debt from the school, and the ACT government issued a show cause notice. For more, I'm joined by ACT political reporter Harry Frost from the school's Lynham campus. Harry, just what do we know about this administration process?
Well, Greg, families at the school received a letter from Deloitte this afternoon informing them the school had gone into voluntary administration effective as of today. Deloitte told families there'd be a focus on keeping it business as usual as far as the school's 1,000 odd students and 200 staff are concerned, with efforts to be made to maintain the continuity of classes and education, and the school's executive and college principals to remain in place. Deloitte says they'll be immediately diving into the school's finances and affairs and working with key stakeholders, including the ACT and federal governments, to stabilise the school's budget and work out a new governance framework, Greg.
And Harry, what's been the reaction from the government as well as the community?
Yeah, well, in recent weeks, parents from the school have been reluctant to speak on camera because of the school's enrolment agreement and their concerns about what speaking publicly might mean for their child's future at the school. But a group called Reform BCC, which includes former parents and staff from the school, have long been advocating with concerns about the school's finances and governance, and they say that the revelations in recent months, including that there's an $8 million debt owed to the tax office and the show cause notice from the ACT government, means that while there was a bit of surprise today by the announcement of voluntary administration, it wasn't entirely a shock. Take a listen.
We really hope that they will work closely with regulators and with other interest groups like the Teachers Union to advocate for change. I mean, it's a voluntary administration, so the board stays in place. We are concerned about that and how that might play out, but we call for Deloitte to be absolutely transparent in everything that they do.
The Independent Education Union of Australia, which in recent weeks has been advocating for staff from the school who hadn't been paid in the last pay period, say they've been told those staff with outstanding pay will now be paid by Friday. However, their Fair Work Commission case will still go to a hearing on Friday. The ACT government too, who say they'll work closely with Deloitte and that their priority is maintaining the continuity and quality of education for all ACT school students, says that show cause notice will still be in effect, and we understand that that's due for a response tomorrow. The federal government, in a statement from Education Minister Jason Clare, says they too will work with Deloitte and ensure that Commonwealth payments continue. And Greg, the ABC contacted the school's board chairman. He declined to comment.
All right, all eyes on it. Harry Frost reporting from Brindabella Christian College in Lyneham. Thank you. Well, a boy who crashed a car on the Barton Highway last year, killing 2 passengers, has pleaded guilty in the ACT Supreme Court to causing the deaths through culpable driving. The then 14-year-old was driving a stolen car when he ran a red light, hitting a passing ute. The stolen car was so badly damaged, the occupants had to be cut free by first responders. 19-year-old Joshua Stewart died in the crash, with a second teenager dying months later from his injuries. The driver will be sentenced later in the year. New South Wales police say they've dismantled an illegal firearms manufacturing ring with links to organised crime operating in the capital region. More than $100,000 of cash, illegal firearms and drugs were seized in the cross-border operation.
A rude awakening for an organised crime gang, with police raiding the homes of 4 men aged between 27 and 60 at Queanbeyan, Gundaroo and Nanama.
We've removed 4 people from this community that are providing, supplying and distributing privately manufactured firearms in our community. There is no doubt in my mind that those firearms were destined to the hands of our organised crime networks. Officers executing search warrants to break up the syndicate, stopping these guns from ending up on the street. They're built to kill people, so anything in the hands of an organised crime network is a dangerous thing. With police seizing dozens of guns, parts, ammunition, a 3D printer and gun blueprints in New South Wales, along with methamphetamine, a commercial quantity of cocaine and cash. Across the border, ACT officers searched a Gungahlin home and a business in Mitchell, finding $100,000 in cash and illegal weapons. Police believe the men involved have links to the New South Wales criminal underworld, with officers seizing clothing which appears to have the insignia of outlaw motorcycle gang, the Bandidos.
New South Wales Police are still investigating and may make more arrests.
Indeed, all our partner agencies are well aware of this growing industry of 3D printed firearms, privately manufactured firearms.
Those arrested are now before the courts. Courtney Barrett-Peters, ABC News, Canberra.
Well, now some good news for Australia's economy. During the December quarter, it grew at its fastest pace in 2 years, breaking out of a long per capita recession. Household spending and living standards are also picking up slightly.
Life is back in the economy. Living standards are recovering and Australians are no longer going backwards after 21 months. Despite the green shoots, it's touch and go for some businesses.
People are looking for promotional stock, and instead of buying 2 packets of Tim Tams, they buy 1.
I think this cost of living is a big hit. We've been finding our regular customers spending a bit less.
But that could change with pay packets now outpacing prices. The economy's growing at the fastest pace in 2 years, expanding 0.6% in the December quarter and 1.3% through the year. Spending on essentials dominated, although households also splashed out on Black Friday sales, concert and sporting tickets. But consumers remain cautious, saving some of that improved income. Private investment also rose, led by renewable and mining projects. And government spending and investment also boosted economic growth.
This is looking more and more like the soft landing that we've been planning for and preparing for.
The only thing driving our economy right now is population growth and people working extra hours.
Our living standards are still lower than 5 years ago, but these figures show the worst is hopefully behind us, with Australia managing to bring down inflation and avoid a recession. As for further interest rate cuts,
we've taken our foot a little bit off the brake. We haven't got our foot on the accelerator.
It helps support the case for more interest rate cuts this year, barring anything crazy going on. Obviously, the world is a highly uncertain place at the moment.
Uncertainty that centres around Donald Trump's trade war, which could threaten Australia's economic recovery. Nadia Daly, ABC News.
Donald Trump has flagged a possible return to peace talks with Ukraine days after his relationship with President Volodymyr Zelensky dissolved during a bitter Oval Office meeting. It comes as President Trump delivered his first speech to the new Congress, declaring that his administration is just getting started.
America is back.
A confident president in full swing.
America's momentum is back. Our spirit is back. Our pride is back. Our confidence is back. Likewise,
the traditional joint address to Congress was an occasion for Donald Trump to parade his agenda and rib his opponents.
I look at the Democrats in front of me and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy or to make them stand or smile or applaud.
While domestic politics was the focus, he also flagged an international rapprochement.
You're in no position.
Donald Trump says Volodymyr Zelensky has written to him, saying Ukraine is ready to come back to the negotiating table.
I appreciate that he sent this letter, just got it a little while ago. Simultaneously, we've had serious discussions with Russia and have received strong signals that they are ready for peace.
Zelensky eager to see the US restore military aid after it was unexpectedly paused by Trump.
People should not have to guess. Ukraine and America deserve a respectful dialogue and a clear stance from each other.
The deep polarisation and anger of American politics was clear in the chamber. 16 years ago, a heckler during Barack Obama's speech caused outrage.
Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Today, a member was evicted while yelling at the president. Some Democrats seem to hold genuine disgust at Mr. Trump's return, while the Republicans are showing almost total unity in support.
I have created the brand new Department of Government Efficiency.
We need a more efficient government. You want to cut waste? I'll help you do it. But change doesn't need to be chaotic or make us less safe.
God bless you and God bless America.
6 weeks in, and Donald Trump is not showing any sign he wants to make peace with political enemies at home, but seems open to mending ties with Ukraine. Carrington Clark, ABC News, Washington.
A multi-billion-dollar Gaza reconstruction plan has been approved by Arab leaders, countering the US president's idea for it to become a Middle East Riviera. As the future of Gaza was debated in Cairo, an ambitious mercy mission to get sick children out of the war-ravaged Strip is underway. The first of 2,000 youngsters were evacuated to Jordan for urgent medical treatment. Middle East correspondent Matthew Doran followed them on the journey.
Difficult early morning farewells in southern Gaza for children bearing the scars of 16 months of war. Football-loving 13-year-old Ahmad, one of the first on board.
A device exploded while I was out collecting water. We were walking when a small boy was playing with it. He exploded.
He lost part of his arm and has untreated leg injuries. Ahmad's sisters are escorting him to Jordan after Israel rejected 3 applications for his mother to travel.
I am sad and afraid because I have to send my children on their own.
In another ambulance, mother Ines and baby Naveen, born with heart problems.
I hope my daughter gets treated and will be cured. I am not fully content as I am leaving my other children behind.
29 kids and 44 chaperones were driven to the Israel border by local paramedics and the World Health Organization, the first of 2,000 the Jordanian government wants to treat. It's a painfully slow 200-kilometre journey to Jordan, taking 12 hours. Although the trip seemed to invigorate Ines and baby Naveen.
The road was very good, with the presence of doctors with us. I was not at all tired and everything was perfect.
Others needed medical assistance along the way.
Their families got dizziness and vomit, and we helped them with IV fluids and medications.
The plan to treat 2,000 sick kids could be slow going. As one group completes its treatment here in Amman, they'll be sent back to Gaza and another group will be brought out. The success of this mission entirely reliant on Israel's cooperation and the ceasefire holding.
Ahmed is remaining firmly focused on the task ahead, to get back to playing football.
I hope to get an artificial prosthetic arm and fix nerves of my legs so I can walk.
A dream for many of the youngest Gazans, whose lives hang in the balance. Matthew Doran, ABC News, Amman.
A 16-year-old boy from regional Western Australia has been charged over an alleged online threat against a newly opened Sydney mosque. A Christchurch 2.0 was threatened against the mosque in Edmondson Park in Sydney's southwest over the weekend. In 2019, 51 people were killed in a mass shooting at a mosque in the New Zealand city of Christchurch. West Australian police have charged the teenager with creating false apprehension to the existence of threats or danger. He's been granted bail and is due to appear in court next month. New South Wales police have charged a second Bankstown hospital nurse over a video which allegedly contained threats against Israeli patients. 27-year-old Ahmad Rashad Nadir has been charged with using a carriage service to menace, harass or offend over the video chat that was later posted online by an Israeli influencer. Mr Nadir was also charged with 1 count of drug possession and will appear in court later this month. He and fellow nurse Sarah Abu Lebda, who was charged last month, were both immediately stood down by New South Wales Health after the video emerged. China has vowed to ramp up government spending as it eyes a looming trade war with the United States. Among its policies for the coming year, targets for economic growth and unemployment, and a sizable boost to Beijing's defence budget.
After years of struggling, Beijing is anticipating more economic headwinds.
Effective demand is weak, and consumption, in particular, is sluggish.
At the annual gathering of China's rubber stamp parliament, the government set its GDP goal at 5%, ambitious as tariffs imposed by Washington double.
An increasingly complex and severe external environment may exert a greater impact on China in areas such as trade, science and technology.
Beijing's leaders also promised a boost to defence spending, a detail not lost on Australia, which saw unprecedented drills last month in the Tasman Sea, nor here in Taipei, where the government and most of the public do not support Beijing's plans for so-called reunification.
And the starter's gun has been fired in more than one trade war. Tariffs on America's other main trading partners, Canada and Mexico, also came into effect.
It's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal. But Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do.
All three countries hitting back with their own measures. Doubling down, Donald Trump continued to back his tariff policy.
Other countries have used tariffs against us for decades, and now it's our turn to start using them against those other countries.
Australia wasn't named, but an American steelworker in the gallery was singled out for a standing ovation. Kathleen Calderwood, ABC News.
To finance now, and the Aussie dollar rose in the wake of Donald Trump's speech to Congress, as well as today's GDP numbers. But share markets fell because of America's tariffs on Mexico and Canada. Here's Alan Kohler.
Australia's per capita recession is over. After 7 consecutive quarters of falling gross domestic product divided by population, it's finally gone up 0.1% in the December quarter, which is the big story from today's national accounts. The only reasons we haven't had an actual recession is because population growth has offset falling productivity, along with public demand, that is spending by all governments, which is back to where it was in the pandemic, and that is saying something. Australian dollar scrambled back to 62.5 US cents, partly because of the solid economic data and partly because the US dollar went to the ledge and jumped off when President Trump started talking to Congress, although it didn't fall far. Deputy Reserve Bank Governor Andrew Hawser summed it up in a speech today when he talked about how trainees at the US Army War College in the late 1980s were taught to see the world as VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous. And he said VUCA is back with a vengeance, showing this graph of trade policy uncertainty. And the share market is certainly having an attack of the VUCAs. The main US index, the S&P 500, is below where it was when Donald Trump won the election last year, having fallen another 1.2% last night. Shares in the UK, Europe and Canada also fell quite heavily. And in Australia, the All Ordinaries finished 0.7% lower, weighed down by retailers and banks, although Coles and Woolies both went ex-dividend. On commodity markets, iron ore slipped below $100 a tonne for the first time in a couple of months, and Bitcoin led all the cryptos higher because of Mr Trump's plan to spend taxpayers' money buying them. And that's finance.
Well, the Australian men's cricket team is out of the Champions Trophy tournament after a 4-wicket loss to India in their semi-final in Dubai. Acting captain Steve Smith top scored with 73 as Australia posted 264. 84 from Virat Kohli helped India chase down the victory target with 11 balls to spare. India will now face the winner of the second semi-final between South Africa and New Zealand, and the decider will be played in Dubai. Smith has retired from one-day internationals after 170 games and 12 centuries. He'll continue to play tests and T20s though. And to the weather now. We asked and you answered for some images from this year's Enlighten Festival. At Mount Stromlo, here's how the 74-inch dome looked in the midst of a sequence of moving images projected onto it. Thanks to Gary for sending that in. We had a single-digit low in Canberra overnight, dipping to 7 degrees before climbing to a top of 28. It was a fine day in all centres within our region, 25 for Merimbula and Moruya. Cooma got to 29, Goulburn 25. Warmer out west in Wagga Wagga with 33. Of the national capitals, well, it almost goes without saying by now that Brisbane was windy and wet, reaching 29. Sydney cloudy and 28. Dry and hot in Melbourne, 35 degrees there. On the satellite, well, Cyclone Alfred has edged about 120 kilometres closer to the coast than at this time last night. In the bight below South Australia, there's also a cold front that's generating some cloud into Western Australia. Looking into tomorrow, Sydney will be a bit unsettled with up to 7 millimetres of rain. Melbourne's cooler than it was today, heading for 24. Hot and sunny for Perth with a max of 38. In our region, some light showers around the coast. Goulburn partly cloudy and 24, 29 for Yass. For Canberra, temps overnight will be a little warmer than last night, then mostly sunny and 28 degrees. Sun's up at 10 to 7. It sets just before 20 to 8. On the further outlook, take a look at Sunday, when the Bureau tells us there's a 90% chance of rain. Up to 50 millimetres of it could fall. We'll keep our eye on that. And that's the latest from the Canberra newsroom for this Wednesday evening. I'm Jennett. 7:30 with Sarah Ferguson is next.